Hey everyone, welcome to Live in SD. We're just going to give people a few moments to join us. So if you're already waiting, just hang tight and we'll get started in a few moments. Again, guys, if you're already out there, you are in the right place. You are watching Live in SD. We're going to get started in just a moment or two. We're going to let some people join in. All right, you guys, let's get started. Welcome to How to Create a Lead Nurturing Campaign, part of the Live in SD webinar series presented by SD Inbound. Today's webinar is once again being sponsored by Campaign Creators, and we're so happy you decided to join us. Now, according to research done by Forrester, companies that excel at lead nurturing generate 50% more sales-ready leads at 33% lower costs. Why is it then that 65% of B2B marketers report they have yet to establish lead nurturing? Well, we have a few ideas. Likely because it's even more complicated process than generating leads and awareness, and requires heavy coordination of strategy, technology, and your marketing team, all of which we know can leave marketers wondering where and how to even start, which is why we're here today. Hi, I'm Tammy, Marketing Manager at Campaign Creators. If you've watched any other Live in SD webinars, you're probably pretty familiar with me, but something you may not know about me, when I was a kid, I had a pet tarantula, along with pet hamsters and pet tortoise. But now, thanks in large part to an arachnophobic wife, I just have your traditional 2 dogs and a baby. But today, I will be covering part 1, in which we'll go over how to create content for each stage of your buyer's journey. But today, I'm not doing this alone.
Hi guys, I'm Shelby. I'm going to be doing part 2, how to build your automated campaign within HubSpot. I'm a marketing technologist at Campaign Creators. A fun fact about me is I lived in Spain for 4 months.
All right, guys, and my name is Ari, and I'm calling in from HubSpot. So I'm over in Boston, chilly Boston, Massachusetts. I'm a product marketing manager, so I'm on the marketing team at HubSpot, and I'm going to be talking about a specific tool, a really cool new tool in HubSpot that helps us to analyze campaign performance. A fun fact about me is that I am an avid hiker. I grew up in the Northeast, and in my native state of New Hampshire, there are 48 high peaks. They're 4,000-foot plus peaks, and I'm about 2/3 of the way done. I've done 32, and I'm aiming to finish those up next summer.
Awesome, and we just really want to thank Ari for joining us all the way from Boston. So let's get started. Now, there's a lot to cover when it comes to creating a lead nurturing campaign. So to keep us on track, we've created a checklist, which you can see here. But don't worry about trying to scribble all this down, because we've created an even nicer downloadable version that will be available to you after the webinar. Now, although a single asset offered on a landing page is great for the initial capture of a lead, if you're in the B2B space, like many of you are, have a longer sales cycle, or your product or service is at a higher price point, it's probably not going to be enough to seal the deal and turn them into your customer. Usually before a person becomes their customer, they must first travel through your sales funnel, which consists of the stages that your customer goes through between becoming a lead and actually making a purchase. And although it has sales in the title, this funnel is actually at the heart of marketing. That's because it's us as marketers' job to motivate a person to move from one stage of the funnel to the next. And the goals and therefore the mindset of your potential buyer will really change drastically as they transition from one stage of the funnel to the next. And we call this series of changes, and HubSpot does as well, in mindset, the buyer's journey. You may also have heard it referred to as the marketing funnel. Now, typically, the buyer's journey is a 3-step process that aligns with the stages of your sales funnel. Now, at the top of the funnel, or Tofu, we have the awareness stage. And this is where people are looking for answers, resources, and insight into a problem they have, or an answer they are seeking, or maybe a goal that they want met. At the middle of the funnel, or Mofu, we have the consideration stage. This is where people are considering the possible solutions for their problem or ways to meet their goal. And then once they've determined the best solution, they begin an evaluation of the providers of those solutions. And then at the bottom of the funnel, or the Mofu, we have the decision stage. And this is where people are making an actual purchase decision. Now, each of these stages requires a different piece or maybe even multiple pieces of educational content that speaks to their wants, needs, and concerns. Now, how do you know what your buyer's wants, needs, and concerns are? This all starts with developing your buyer personas. Now, I'm not going to dive into that today. That would be a whole webinar onto itself. In fact, if you have not developed personas for your business yet, you must start there. And we do have a workbook that will help you develop your personas that I can give you a link to in the webinar follow-up. HubSpot also has a lot of great resources on how to create buyer personas. Okay, so where do we start when it comes to conceptualizing a campaign? Here at Campaign Creators, we like to either start from the bottom up by asking what product or service do we want to promote right now? And then we figure out what pain point or goal does that address? Or you can work from the top down by asking what pain point or goal do we want to address? Maybe it's something that's common and shared by multiple personas. And then what solution do we provide that addresses that pain point? But either way, the campaign will start by addressing the pain point or goal and end with a decision to buy or sample your solution. Now that we know where we are starting and finishing, let's break down each piece of content to determine exactly what should be included in each content piece. Now, in the awareness stage at the top of the funnel, like we said, your buyer is trying to identify their challenge or an opportunity they want to pursue. They're also deciding whether or not that goal or challenge should be a priority. And in order to fully understand the awareness stage for your buyer, you need to ask yourself, how do buyers describe this goal or pain point in their words? And this may not be how you refer to it internally. What are the top causes for this pain point or reasons this goal is not being met? What does your buyer have to gain if this pain point is addressed or goal is met? And what are some of the consequences of inaction by the buyer? Also, are there common misconceptions that buyers have about addressing the goal or challenge? This will help you figure out where there might be pushback. And how do buyers decide whether the goal or challenge should be prioritized? And lastly, how do buyers educate themselves on this goal or challenge? In other words, where do they look for information? What types or formats of information speak to them? And once you understand the awareness stage for your buyer, you need to create a piece of content that includes the answers to these questions. Some formats that we have seen to be successful at this stage are guides, checklists, quizzes, worksheets, and assessments. Just remember, the goal at the end of engaging with this content is for your buyer to have identified their challenge or goal and decided to take action on it. For example, we wanted to create an asset for our buyer persona, Marketing Mary. Now, one of her pain points is that she has a gap in her digital marketing capabilities. And we identified 3 primary causes for this gap. Either she does not have enough time or manpower to dedicate to it, the technical skills needed to execute the necessary activities, or she just lacks strategic direction. Now, digital marketing spend continues to increase from 57 billion in 2014 to over 100 billion in 2019, according to Forrester. So Mary knows this is a priority, which is why, if addressed, yes, her organization will benefit, but ultimately it's about Mary. She will feel a weight off her shoulders when she's able to fill the gap and bring these benefits to her organization. And if not addressed, she will probably feel guilty, burdened by a never-ending to-do list, and lacking that strategic direction. In sum, she will feel she's falling behind. Now, with this information in hand, we created an interactive quiz, which through a series of 5 scenario-based questions, helped Mary to identify the main cause for her gap, which was either time, tech skills, or strategy. Now, at the consideration stage or middle of the funnel, your buyer knows they have a problem that needs to be solved or a goal they're trying to reach, and they're even committed to addressing it. So now they're ready to evaluate the different approaches or methods available to pursue the goal or solve the challenge. This point in the journey also marks a point of extended engagement where you're really nurturing the lead. You're building a relationship with them, you're establishing trust between the potential buyer and your brand. And in order to fully understand the consideration stage for your buyer, you should ask, what categories of solutions do buyers investigate? These could include categories that you are not necessarily in. How do buyers educate themselves on the various categories? How do buyers perceive the pros and cons of each category? And then how do buyers decide which category is right for them? The middle of the funnel offer teaches buyers how to solve their problem or meet their goal. And this is the stage where you can begin to make the case for why your solution in particular is the best fit. You may also want to help them determine if they're not a good fit for your solution, which is really important for customer retention in the long term. Remember, you're only interested in qualified leads. Some formats we found successful for a Mofu are case studies, white papers, ebooks, webinars, and videos. And just to note, the consideration phase may require several Mofu assets, especially in the case of very long sales cycles or complicated products. For example, we split our consideration stage for Marketing Mary into 2 Mofus. In Mofu 1, called Your Guide to Filling a Marketing Gap, we outlined 5 different gap-filling options, only one of which was ours, hiring a marketing agency. This was followed, if they were interested in a marketing agency, by Mofu 2, Filling Marketing Gaps, It's What We Do, which introduced campaign creators for the first time and featured 6 client case studies. Finally, we've arrived at the decision stage, or the bottom of the funnel, where your potential customer has chosen the category of solutions to address their problem or goal, the what, but they need to determine which one or the who that can best provide that solution. Some questions you should ask yourself to define the decision stage are, what criteria do buyers use to evaluate the available offerings? When buyers do investigate your company's offerings, what do they like about it compared to alternatives? What concerns do they have about your offering? And lastly, who needs to be involved in the decision? For each person involved, how does their perspective on the decision differ? And then, do buyers have expectations around trying the offering before they purchase it? We can think about this a lot in examples like the SaaS space. Or outside of purchasing, do buyers need to make additional preparations, such as implementation of plans or training strategies? Now, the bottom of the funnel is where someone is making the actual purchase decision. They're ready to buy, but that still doesn't guarantee that they're going to buy from you. Answering the questions we went over will help you determine what your Mofu offering should be. In other words, what can you give your lead that will give them just that final nudge to make a purchase decision? Your Mofu asset should also aim to assure that the who they buy from is you. We suggest offering a consultation, quote, trial, demo, or purchase promotion. For example, Mary may be skeptical of agencies. She may have even worked with one in the past that left her with a bitter taste in her mouth. Now, on the other hand, she may have no experience working with an agency and be completely unsure of what the relationship would look like if it's really worth investing money in this option, which was likely the most expensive of the 5 that had been presented. So we decided to give her the option to try before she buys with a free strategy session with Nicole Pereira. Some of you may know her from SD Inbound. Now that you have your Tofu, Mofu, and Bofu content in hand, it's worth the extra investment to make it look good. In fact, when given 15 minutes to consume content, 2/3 of people would rather read something beautifully designed than something plain. So pass it off to your designer to add that glossy finish. All right, now, how do you link these pieces together to create a funnel for your leads to travel down? That's where Shelby, our marketing technologist, comes in. Take it away, Shelby.
All right, thank you, Tammy. So before we jump into creating a campaign, I just wanted to show you guys what a campaign looks like from a bird's eye view, how all the pieces connect, and how leads move throughout the campaign. Through your lead generation and awareness efforts, a lead will land on the Tofu landing page promoting a top of the funnel offer, which includes a form for them to fill out. If the lead fills out the form, they will receive nurture emails. In this example, we have 3, which deliver the asset and try to get them to convert at the next level, the Mofu. A workflow automates the emails so you don't have to manually send them, and will drip them to the lead at intervals set by you. If the lead converts at the Mofu, they will be enrolled into another workflow that will drip emails attempting to nurture the leads to the Bofu. If a lead fills out the Bofu form, they are now a sales qualified lead and should be passed off to the sales team. Now just keep this visual in mind while I show you how to create a landing page, email, workflow, and campaign within HubSpot. So now let's head over to HubSpot. All right. So once you have your Tofu and Mofu assets created and back from your designer, you'll need to upload the beautifully designed assets and thumbnails into the file manager. These files are public-facing, so make sure the file names make sense to anyone outside of your organization. The title of the asset is usually the safest bet for naming conventions in the file manager. So how you get to the file manager is Content, File Manager. And we're going to upload our Mofu 1 for Marketing Mary, our How to Fill a Digital Marketing Gap. And as you can see, this name doesn't really make sense to anyone outside of our organization, so we're going to rename it. All right, rename. So now you open this, open in a new window, and here's your guide. And here's the link that you're going to use throughout the rest of the campaign that we're going to create. So we're going to leave this tab open, and I'll show you guys where you're going to use it again later. So now that your assets are uploaded into the file manager, let's start building. But first, I want to talk about landing pages. So to start, let's discuss the anatomy of a landing page. Here is an example of our landing page. Every landing page should have a catchy H1, an image of the offer, a form, some supporting content above the fold. The information that you have above the fold will be enough to get some people to convert. You can also increase conversions by including what is contained in the offer, testimonial quotes, and trust logos below the fold. By adding trust logos and testimonial quotes, you're building trust with your leads so they are more likely to turn over their information in exchange for your offer. So now let's go back into HubSpot and build this landing page. So we're going to close out of here. We're going to go Content, Landing Pages, and create a landing page. So our landing page that I just showed you guys is a custom template that we have created and used for ourselves and our clients. We spent a lot of time testing and optimizing this template to the point that it now converts at over 50%. If you're interested in getting this template, feel free to email us after the presentation. We're also hoping to have this template up in the marketplace soon. If you don't have a custom landing page, HubSpot has some great free templates in their marketplace that you can use. So I'm just going to search for our template now. All right, so when creating anything in HubSpot, it's very important to follow consistent naming conventions. This will help you organize and find the pieces of your campaign, including landing pages, emails, assets, forms, and more. So we're going to name this SD Inbound Tofu, since the page is promoting the Tofu asset for our SD Inbound campaign. So now I'm going to press create. All right, so this is our landing page. First, let's talk about the form. So we're going to click into this form module, and then the form title, we're going to change it so it has an H1 that is actionable and describes exactly what will happen when the form is submitted. So for example, get your guide. Or going back to our campaign that we created for Marketing Mary, we would use get your gap filling guide because it describes the asset and is actionable and describes that next step. So now we're going to create a form. We're going to go add new, and remember your naming conventions here. So we're going to call this SD inbound Tofu since it's the tofu form. We're going to click OK. When determining what you want to ask from your lead, it is important to make sure that you're asking enough information that it corresponds with the stage. Since this is a tofu asset, we probably don't want to ask people for their firstborn child. Maybe we just stick to asking for their first name, last name, and email. For Mofus and Bofus, it is appropriate to ask for more information since there is a higher perceived value. So since we want to ask for first name, last name, and email, we want to make sure that all of these fields are required by pressing this little star button. Here's a little pro tip with forms. If you've created life cycle stages, you can include a hidden field to automatically change the lead's life cycle stage when they submit the form. So how you do that is you go into fields, and we're going to search for life cycle stage, and you can just drag it over and drop it down. How you make it hidden is you click the little edit button, you click make field hidden, and then this is where you change their life cycle stage. So since this is a tofu form, we would want to change their life cycle stage to a marketing qualified lead. We're going to scroll down and click done editing. And how I just searched this and dragged and dropped over here is the same thing you would do for Mofus and Bofus for any other information that you're wanting to gather from them. Just type it into fields, and when it comes up, drag and drop it over. So now we're going to go back into the details. And then as you see right here, there's submit button text. This needs to match your H1 and describe the action. For example, download my guide. So I'm going to change that right now. Never use submit on your form. It is not enticing and does not tell the lead what the next step is. For all they know, they could just be submitting their information and get nothing from you. So once you've decided that this is exactly what the information that you want to gather from your guide, be sure to save and close out of the form. All right, so after saving, that next step is determining how your lead is going to receive the asset. So what should a visitor see after submitting your form? Will it be an inline thank you message or a thank you page? So I'm just going to show you our thank you page. So if you decide to create a thank you page, we recommend creating a landing page that delivers the tofu asset at the top and introduces the Mofu asset below, just like this one. As you can see at the top of the page, it's delivering the tofu guide, and it also gives them the option to share to social or email to a friend. This is so that the lead's journey doesn't just end with them getting the asset, but it encourages to continue their educational journey if they are ready. So to redirect to this page, you would just copy this link, go back into our page, do redirect to another page, and you can type in the link right here and just press OK. So as soon as they fill out this form, they would be redirected to that next page. Or you can have them display an inline thank you message. In the inline thank you message, you should thank them for submitting the form and deliver the asset directly there. So you can go, here is your guide. And remember how I had you keep your guide open? This is why. We're going to go and select this link over here, go back in here. We're going to select guide, and we're going to add a hyperlink. So it's going to this guide. Make sure you open the link in the new window in case they want to come back to this page. So now after they submit the form, this inline thank you message will pop up, thanks them for submitting the form, and delivers their guide right there. All right, so now we're going to scroll on down, and the form is complete. So now from here on out, all you're really doing is adding in your pre-approved copy, your H1, supporting content, descriptive content, and testimonial quotes in their respective locations. Next, I want to talk about adding your image into the image module. We're going to go over here, and we're going to select into the image module, and you can swap out the image right here. You can replace it, and this will open up your file manager. So remember those naming conventions? Super important here. You can search in here directly within your file manager if you've already uploaded the asset, or if you haven't uploaded it yet, you can go in here and upload a file, and it's right here. So we're just going to click on it and see how it's uploading. After this file uploads, it'll be in your file manager and it'll be easily selectable. All right, there we go. So now we're going to use this image. So then it replaced that image right there. So we're going to scroll down and save and go to module list. So here's our page. So after your landing page looks exactly how you want it to look, we're going to go into settings and create a page title. So that SD Inbound Tofu is the internal page name. So only you and your team members will see this. No one outside of your team will see this. You're going to need to create an external page name that your leads will see. Typically, we like to use the H1 or the title of the asset as your page title. So I'm going to type it in, your guide to filling all right. And as you notice, HubSpot automatically created a link for me based off of that page title, which is super helpful and saves you a lot of time. Next, you need to create a meta description. This should be something enticing and similar to your supporting copy above the fold that tells the lead what they will gain from downloading your content. So after you create your meta description, you can go into publish and publish your page now. Don't worry, if you happen to publish your page before it's perfect, you can always go back and update it. So next, we're going to create emails to nurture leads from one stage to the next. We typically create a series of 3 emails to nurture leads from one step to the next. Email 1 delivers the requested asset and encourages the lead to convert. The purpose of emails 2 and 3 is to promote that next step in your campaign. But depending on the length of your sales cycle, you need to add more or less emails. If people aren't converting on 3 emails, try adding more emails into your workflow. So now let's create an email. We're going to go on content, email, and we're going to create email. All right, we typically like to use this free template from HubSpot. The trend that we're seeing with emails these days is to keep them simple, having them appear as more of a personalized email rather than a heavily designed sales piece. So remember to stick to your naming conventions here as well. So this email will be SD Inbound Mofu Nurture 1. Since it's the first nurture email from the tofu to the mofu. So now we're going to create it. All right, let me just grab our pre-approved copy so I can drag it on in here. All right. There we go. All right, so first you need to pick a sender. This should always be from a person, whether it's fictional or a real person. We have found that emails from a person rather than a company result in increased open and click rates. Emails from people also build more trust and appear as if the employee is actually emailing the lead rather than just sending out a blast email. So we're going to make this email from Tammy. All right, so the next you need to create an enticing subject line. This is just placeholder copy. Clearly, please don't use this. And supporting preview text. And we're going to do done. All right, so now it's time to create your email. So we're going to get rid of all of this, and I'm going to place in our pre-approved copy. And we're going to go through, and I'll show you some tricks on how to increase click rates. Personalization tokens are a great way to increase click rates. They make the feel like the email is for them and not just part of a blast. At a minimum, you should have personalization tokens in the introduction. The leads who are receiving this email are already in your database and you know their name, so why not use it? Hi, first name is a great introduction. It will increase in higher open and click rates. So now I'm going to show you how to add in personalization tokens. So right here, we already have this in our pre-approved copy. So you can see hi, first name. Oops, sorry, I'm going to pull up. So we're going to go up here. We're going to delete this, and we're going to add in a personalization token, which you just click this little button right here. And we want their first name. So we're going to scroll down and make sure you have a default value that makes sense. So either hi friend or hi there if they happen to not put in their first name correctly. And then you can insert that. So as you can see, we have our personalization token right here. I'm going to add a space. You guys can see what I'm doing. All right. And you can also add in personalization tokens wherever they make sense. So we also have another one right here for a company name. So we're going to add in here, and then you would just search company or company name. Again, make sure your default value makes sense, so your company. All right, within your emails, it is also important to have CTAs that link to the landing page for the next step in the campaign. A good call to action has to send a clear message about the benefits people will get when they act. You should include a variety of CTAs, in-text links, and button. While it is important to have options, you don't want to put too many CTAs in your email because too many CTAs will confuse your lead and lower the chances that they will click through. So you can create a CTA. We have it right here in our copy, Get Interactive PDF. So you click this button right here, Call to Action. And then you would create a CTA. We're going to call this SD Inbound Mofu Nurture. And then we're going to go back to our Mofu page, which I already created this ahead of time because I didn't want to waste all the time creating a Mofu pages for you, but you create this the exact same way that you created that Tofu page and the Tofu form. We're going to click here, go back into our email, put it in our link URL, and open in a new window. And then we're going to go into our design and design this. So we're going to select our color that we want our CTA to be. And you can change a lot of things here. You can make it an image button. You can change the styling of it. You can change the padding. And then over here is where you change the text. So Get Interactive PDF, since that's the next step in our campaign. And then we're going to create the CTA. Then you click on it, and then you insert. All right, so here's our button CTA. And since this is the first email in our Mofu Nurture, we want to make sure that we have the link to the asset in this one. So we have it here. We're going to want to add it. So go back to your guide, copy this link, and then this is the same way we did it in the inline thank you message. We're going to hyperlink to our guide. So as you can see in this one, we have two CTAs. One is a link and one is a button. We don't want to give the lead too many options because we don't want to confuse them. All right, so now that we have our CTAs and our personalization tokens, make sure we have our sender. So we have Tammy's signature here, and I'm just going to add an image of her. So how we're going to do this is insert image, and we're going to search for her name. Got a lot of images of Tammy in here. All right, and then we're going to insert. So now we have our signature with Tammy. And just again, this is just building that brand relationship with the person instead of the company. So now we're going to go into settings. You have to select an email type. So this is marketing information. And then go into recipients and save it for automation. We're going to save, press next, save for automation, and save the email for workflows. After you've created this first email, make sure you do this again 2 more times so you have your 2 or 3 nurture emails. As you can see, this email says that it's published, but don't worry, it didn't go out to anyone yet. So now that you've saved your emails for automation, let's set up the workflow to connect them. This workflow will trigger your series of emails to be sent over time to visitors who fill out your form but fail to move on to that next step in your campaign. So you can do this one of 2 ways. You can either click here, go to workflows, or contacts, workflows. And then we're going to create a workflow. We're going to call it SD Inbound Mofu Nurture. All right, so the first step to creating a workflow is the enrollment criteria. For the Mofu Nurture workflow, the enrollment criteria is if they filled out that Tofu form. We're going to set our enrollment triggers, the form submission. We're going to search for our SD Inbound Tofu form. We're going to do done. Here's a little pro tip that a lot of people forget about. If you have a lead flow pop-up promoting your Tofu asset, be sure to include that in the enrollment criteria as well. So we're going to save our enrollment criteria since we don't have a pop-up at this moment. And so the next step is adding in the emails and delays. Your email should be about several days apart to remind the leads that they haven't taken action in a while keeping your company and asset top of mind. So we're going to add these emails in. We're going to search for our email name. We're going to do save. And then since I didn't create emails 2 and 3, I'm just going to use email 1 over again so you guys can see what it looks like. We're going to add in a delay. We're going to use 3 days in this case. And then we're going to scroll down, add in another email. So this would be email 2, but I'm just going to use email 1. Then add in another delay, save, and then we're going to add in the final email. And then we're going to save. So this is what your workflow looks like. It's a series of 3 emails with delays in between those 2 emails. So our next step is to add a goal. The goal for this workflow would be to get leads to download the Mofu, which is that next step in the campaign. So the goal would be set as a Mofu submission form. I didn't create the Mofu for you guys today. We've already created it previously, so I'm just going to search it right now. But you remember, you would create this the exact same way that we created the Tofu form. We're going to do save. So then we have a goal of filling out that next step. All right, so now let's go into settings and make sure that everything is set up correctly. You want it to go 7 days a week, anytime, doesn't matter, whatever you want to set it to, it's up to you. Now we're going to go into unenrollment and suppressions. If you have multiple workflows set up and want these emails in this workflow to be prioritized over any other workflow, you can remove leads from specific workflows right here. Also, if you don't want anyone in your contact database to be receiving these emails, you can create a list and add them right here, and they will be suppressed from receiving the emails in this workflow. You're also going to need to create this workflow again to nurture leads from the Mofu to the Mofu from the Mofu. And once your workflow is all set up, you turn it on by just dragging this thing over here. All right, so now that you have all of the pieces, let's organize them together into a campaign. So you go productivity, campaigns, and we're going to create a campaign. We're going to call it SD Inbound. All right, so we're going to go through and associate all landing pages, emails, CTAs, workflows that you have that are part of this campaign. And as you can see, there's keywords, landing pages, emails, CTAs, blog posts, pages, social, paid, other, and workflows. When you're creating awareness for your campaign via any of these other sources, make sure that you're linking into this campaign to help you with reporting and measuring. How you associate the landing pages, emails, call to actions, is you click associate and you just search for the name of the page. So here we go, and then we're going to save it. And then the same thing for email, and there's our email right there. Same thing for our call to action. And then same thing for our workflow. Just search the name and save it. All right, so now let's go back to all campaigns. This is your dashboard, and it serves 2 purposes: to organize and measure. What I just showed you is how to create and organize your campaign. Now I'm going to pass it off to Ari to show you how to measure the success of that campaign.
All right, Ari, you want to make sure you're screen sharing. Let me pass it over to Ari to present to everyone.
Perfect. Awesome. So thanks, Henrik and Shelby. So we've run through all the pieces of the campaign. Shelby did an awesome job going through creating the landing pages, the personas, the workflows, the emails, and all the connective tissue in between. So now I think the most important and the most exciting question to me is, how do we figure out if all of that actually worked? And so the way that I think about it, and the way that we on the marketing team at HubSpot think about this, is at 2 levels. One is the micro, and the other is at the macro level. So at the micro level, how did each individual asset perform? So for an email, what was the open rate of that email? For a landing page, what was the conversion rate of the landing page? These are the metrics that help you to optimize your marketing assets. So if your click rate was low, you should try a different type of CTA the next time, or you should make your CTA bigger the next time. If your landing page conversion rate was low, you should try shortening your form. But these metrics, while they help you to optimize your marketing for the next time around, they don't really tell the whole story about the campaign. So the campaign's goal is generally to drive business and to drive revenue. And so the open rate of an email or the conversion rate of a landing page is really awesome, but it's not the ultimate goal, right? And the open rate, while the open rate of an email is great for us to optimize, to be honest, I as a marketer, I don't think that my CMO could care even a little bit about the open rate of a single email that I send. What he cares about is, for the big picture campaigns that we're running, holistically, how are they performing? And so that's where these macro metrics come into play. So as a whole, how does the campaign perform? How many contacts did all of these pieces create? Right, so Shelby created a couple different landing pages for a Tofu, for a Mofu asset. together, how many contacts, how many MQLs do those create? How much revenue did it close at the end of the day? These are the metrics that matter when you're comparing campaigns against each other, or when you're showing off the campaign to other people on the team. So when I'm running a campaign and I'm showing it off to Kip, or CMO, I'm not showing him the open rate, I'm showing him these macro metrics. And the same goes for our VP of sales. The things that he cares about are like which campaigns we run are driving leads through the door, are influencing leads to become MQLs, and are at the end of the day closing the customers that are really awesome for them. So HubSpot has always done a really great job, I think, with the micro metrics. So for each individual piece of a campaign, an example that you guys can see here, for each individual piece of a campaign, we have an individual asset analytics screen. So the example here is with email. We have all the analytics we need in order to optimize an email for the next time around. This is a specific example from one of our own portals. How many sent, how many delivered. So we might look at this. We might see, for example, we might see a mobile open rate or a mobile click-through rate that's really low. And so our marketing optimization next time might be to optimize this one specific email more closely for mobile, to shorten up that copy, to test it on more mobile clients and more mobile devices, to make the CTAs bigger, to include fewer CTAs, right? So this type of asset level micro metric is helpful for the campaign, but it's helpful for us as marketers to optimize our campaigns. Same thing goes for landing pages. So for each individual asset that Shelby went through, the landing page, the workflow, the email, there's this asset level analysis that we can do that helps us to optimize that individual asset. So for a landing page, we might look and see that for that landing page, this metric here is a view to submission rate. So it's a column for how many of the people who came to this page actually ended up giving us their information. So we might look at the example here from paid search, and we see that the paid search view to submission rate is maybe not what we want it to be. So for this specific landing page, we would optimize the paths folks are taking through paid search and optimize that page to make sure that there are really clear next steps, that those that form headline that Shelby talked about, that all the headlines, that all the fields are in line with the expectation that that visitor has coming from paid search. So again, micrometric analysis that we do as marketers to optimize our campaign for the next time around. So I think that HubSpot has always done a really good job with these asset level, these micrometrics. In full transparency, we haven't had a great way to measure campaigns from a macro level. That's full transparency. At the level, and that's at the level that the sales team cares about. That's at the level that a CMO or an executive team or even a board would care about. So today I want to show you a new tool that really speaks to that, that solves for those most important macro level campaign metrics. So let's dive in. And before we do, one quick thing to note is that the tool we're about to see, it is available to basic, it is available to professional and enterprise marketing hub portals, doesn't cost anything extra, and it's currently in an opt-in beta. So if we head back over to the campaign screen where Shelby left us off, in the bottom right-hand corner, again, this is under productivity and into campaigns. In the bottom right-hand corner, there's a really simple good news opt-in link here. Sounds good. That'll take you over to the new tool. A quick caveat, as folks are familiar with beta tests, the idea is that they're available, but that we're still perfecting the tool. We're taking a lot of feedback as we go. And so that means that if you choose to use the tool, which we would love for you to do, you are an early adopter, and the suggestions that you give us will end up shaping the way that that tool looks once it's fully launched. But it also does mean that, just a quick caveat to a tool like that is that along the way with beta tools, they tend to change a little bit more often than the fully launched features do, and that you might come across a few more hiccups than you would otherwise, a few more just bugs. That's the nature of beta software. So if you don't love the idea of that, I would stay out of the beta tool for now. But all that said, all caveats aside, in order to get to this screen, again, productivity campaigns, sounds good. And that lands you here. So this is the brand new campaign analytics screen inside of HubSpot. And the idea here, again, is to go over some of those really awesome macro metrics that the sales team cares about, that the CEO cares about, that the board cares about. So let's walk through this bit by bit here. And again, we're using kind of sample data from a HubSpot portal that we have. We call it Biglytics. So it's a fake company that we have that we use to show off some of the new tools. So the first thing that we see here is, of course, we can chart out that campaign performance visually. So we can choose a bar chart, or we can choose an area chart. I tend to like column charts just because I think they present a little bit better to execs, but we can choose the area charts as well. We can compare campaigns against each other by simply, we come down here. So each of these is a campaign that we've run. Just like we saw with Shelby, at the end of the process there, she tagged all of the different assets with a campaign. And so here's where we see those campaigns. So if I want to just see one single campaign, I can certainly do that. Here's the ebook campaign. If I want to compare it to a different campaign for any metric that we have, we'll go over the metrics in a second. We can just check that off. Both of these things may seem basic. They've never ever before been possible inside of HubSpot. So compare this to the screen we were looking at before. Here's the campaigns dashboard before. We never had a way to chart out these metrics. We never had a way to compare metrics to each other. It's a really, really exciting feature, even just to have the visualization on the chart here is really, really awesome, and we've come a long way there. But just to go through the metrics here, I think the metrics are really where this tool gets powerful. So the first thing that we'll see here, sessions, is a measure of the traffic that came from all of the tagged assets that are a part of a campaign. So in this case, the example that we have here is an ebook campaign. And so that ebook campaign might have included a landing page, a couple blog posts to promote that landing page. It might have included a website page or a couple website pages, right? There's a bunch of different assets that go into it, just like the campaign that Shelby just put together. How many sessions, how much traffic did that drive to the site all the way at the top of the funnel? How much awareness is that spreading about your business? Next up is new contacts. And we have two different measures of new contacts here. One is first touch. And so the idea of first touch new contacts is that an asset that was a part of this campaign was the very first thing that a contact saw on your website. So I like to think of that as kind of the gateway into the website. So maybe a blog post from that campaign we created, one of those Tofu top of the funnel awareness stage blog posts was one of the first things they saw. This would give us a measure of how many of those first touch leads a certain campaign drove. Next up is last touch. So as compared to first touch, the idea of last touch is that some asset in that campaign was the last thing that a contact saw before they converted from a visitor to a lead. So whereas first touch might be a blog post that I saw early on in my journey through a website, a couple weeks later or a couple months later, I might come back, find my way to a landing page and convert. And so the last touch concept there would be, it may not be the first thing that I ever saw that would go in the first touch column. The last thing that I saw before converting, that's really what drove me to convert from a visitor to a lead, is what that last touch contacts column is all about. Really quick note here, again, a simple thing, but I think really, really valuable, is that you can click on those contacts numbers. So if I want to see the names of all of those last touch contacts that we drove from a certain campaign, we can do that. We want to add those to a list, we can. So maybe we want to follow up with an email send to all the folks who touched a part of a webinar campaign and just send them the slides from the webinar to make sure that they have them in front of them. Or we can export that too if we wanted to do any kind of reporting outside of HubSpot. So before, this was never possible. If we come back into our old campaigns view, if we clicked onto any of those campaigns, we would have a metric, we would have a number for contacts. But in full transparency, as a marketer, one of the things I hate the most is having a number inside of a tool that is not clickable. So within the new tool, that number is clickable for all of the metrics here outside of sessions. We can click in and actually see the contacts and see the deals that came from a certain campaign. Next up, influenced contacts. So the key here and the kicker is that not all campaigns are designed to generate new leads. And so you might have a campaign, the campaign we saw with Shelby and Tammy was a kind of full funnel campaign, but you might have a campaign that's specifically aimed at a certain part of the funnel. So a campaign that might be focused on just that Tofu to Mofu conversion, or just that Mofu to Bofu, or that Mofu to MQL conversion. And if that's the case, chances are you're not going to drive a ton of new leads, right? You're taking folks that are already in the pipeline and trying to drive them to that next stage of the conversation. And so with this new campaign analytics screen, we have a metric, a column for influence contacts. And the idea there is that we'll see exactly how many contacts were touched by some piece of that campaign, whether it be a view of a blog post that's a part of that campaign, a social click of a social message that's associated with that campaign, an email open or an email click, any of the different assets. If a contact came into contact with any part of that campaign, they would be a part of this influenced contacts column here. And then lastly, and most importantly, is that we can track down how much revenue a campaign influenced and how many closed deals a campaign touched along the way. So the way that this works is that when a deal closes, HubSpot tracks down every single campaign that ever touched it and credits that campaign with influencing that deal. So this is a concept, this idea of assigning credit to a couple different touch points along the way to that closed deal. That's what we call multi-touch attribution. So attributing credit to multiple touches along the way, that's multi-touch attribution inside of HubSpot. And so the idea here is I'm really excited about this because I can take this report and for the first time, go to Jeff, my boss, or Megan, my VP, or Kip, my CMO, and tell them how much actual revenue, how many actual closed deals the campaign that I ran influenced. And it's not just the one landing page, it's every single piece of that campaign that I poured my heart and my soul and my sweat and my blood and my tears into. This screen helps us to measure all of that from the top of the funnel with sessions all the way to the bottom of the funnel with those closed deals and that revenue that you influenced. So before going off of the screen, one other quick thing to point out, which is new in the last, I would say, couple days, so you guys are some of the first to even feast your eyes on it, is the ability to add one of these reports to a dashboard. And so the idea would be for any of these metrics that we have, so maybe we want to see the influenced revenue over time for a certain campaign or set of campaigns. If we wanted to add that to a dashboard, whether that be our marketing dashboard or a sales dashboard or any other dashboard that we create in HubSpot, that's simple to do. So we can simply add that to a dashboard, to an existing or to a net new dashboard. And it's just with a couple clicks there. So if you want to share that with your team, one thing that I like to do is to add these reports to dashboards. And then from dashboards, you can set up recurring emails that go out maybe once a week, or for a CEO or a CMO, maybe once a month or once a quarter. And if you attach one of these influenced revenue reports to a dashboard and set up that kind of a recurring email, that can be a really powerful thing to show the impact of marketing on the bottom line of the company. All right, so we have this data. What do we actually do with this data? I never like looking at a report without figuring out what I'm going to do next with this. So there's a couple of things that I would recommend there. The first and the most important is, again, to use it to show off the value of your work to other teams. So this is really the first time in HubSpot that we've taken content all the way at the top of the funnel and dollars all the way at the bottom of the funnel and connected them in one report so seamlessly. And so that's really, to me, the kind of beauty of an all-in-one tool is that everything from the pages you create to the contacts and the forms and the landing pages you create all the way to the closed deals can exist inside of HubSpot. And the second thing is that this is a higher level kind of an optimization tool. So whereas with the asset level analytics, we're optimizing specific assets, specific emails, landing pages, here we get to optimize our higher level strategy. So the idea here would be maybe we ran 2 or 3 campaigns in a given quarter. Which one brought in the most first touch contacts? Which one brought in the most dollars at the end of the day? What are some things about those top campaigns that you might recreate? So if we figure out that a certain campaign brought in the most revenue, what was the format of the big pieces of that campaign? What about the topic? Was it aimed at a certain persona or a certain part of the funnel? The idea here is that we can use that past data to plan for the future campaigns that we execute. So before we close, this is the campaign analytics screen. Before we close, I wanted to show you guys, give you a kind of a sneak peek at another screen that is branched off of this, that is in really, really early testing. So it's a little bit more bare bones, but because we love the San Diego Hug, we love campaign creators, and we want to just give you guys a sneak peek, let's take a look at it. So the idea of that screen is that it takes the campaign analytics, which right now we're looking at a very macro level again, and it gives us a kind of in-between, between the macro that we're looking at here and then the micro that we looked at before, which was one specific email or one specific landing page. And so it's what I call the detail page of a campaign. So if we click into any of these campaigns, in this case, we'll go into the competitive market analysis. will land on that detail screen. And the idea here is that it shows the aggregated metrics of all the assets for a specific campaign. So whereas with that individual email, we only saw the individual asset metrics, how many people opened, clicked this specific email. The idea within the detail page is that if we have a set of emails, it sums up and gives us some aggregate metrics about all of those emails together. Same with CTAs, same with landing pages. So from here, we can see that for this specific campaign, we had 2 different emails, how many were sent, how many opened, how many were clicked. You wouldn't get the same type of aggregate data from the individual asset level itself. That's much more micro. The idea here with this detail page is that we get more aggregate than those individual assets, but not quite as holistic high level as the campaign analytics screen. All right, so this is a very early stage process. It is available to everybody, again, in beta testing. So if you do end up opting into that brand new campaigns tool from your campaign screen, you'll get access to both the campaign analytics screen, which was this one here, and also that campaign detail screen, which we saw here. So with that in mind, I think that that's it from me. That's a high-level overview of some really awesome, exciting new tools and tools that we would love all of your feedback on. And with that, I will pass it back to Tammy and to Shelby out in San Diego to close us out.
Thank you so much, Ari. All right, let me just show my screen here. Thank you guys all so much for being here. We want to make sure that you check out our other events. You can go to www.sdinbound.com/events. And then also make sure that you take the 2-minute survey for access to slides and that handy checklist. I'll leave this up there for a minute so you can try and scribble this down. And then we will be sending a follow-up email, so that will have a link to the survey in it as well. And then we have a handy guide, how to create a lead nurturing campaign, that goes over a lot of the details, not necessarily about creating your campaign inside of HubSpot, but about the best practices for creating those landing pages, assets, and emails. So I'll be sure to, you can reach out to us after this if you would like a link to that. And of course, if you want to connect further, I'm always available. You can find me on LinkedIn, or you can email me, tammy@campaignCreators.com. Or as I always say, I happen to be the woman behind the chat bot on our website.
You can also email me or add me on LinkedIn at Shelby Heath or Shelby@campaignCreators.com.
And then you can connect with Ari at Ari Plout on Twitter. And we just want to, again, thank HubSpot for their support and for lending Ari to us for a couple of hours. Thank you, Ari. And this webinar ran a little bit longer than usual. So if you have any questions, just email us. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day, guys.